Continuing with the desk upgrade, we're talking software in this video. Like most people, I've predominantly used Windows my whole life. The PC in my house growing up was a Windows XP system, my first laptop ran Windows 8, and I installed Windows 7 on my first desktop and held on to that for as long as I could. Now, Windows 10 is end of life as of October 2025, and Microsoft is demanding people upgrade. However, all the anti-consumer practices and crap that Microsoft has baked into Windows 11 has me looking over the fence. I've been an on and off Linux user for a long time now, using it for home lab, emulation, and all that, but I've never taken the plunge to daily drive it. That changes now. I'm going to explain a little bit about my operating system choice, some of the software I like to run, and some custom configurations. I decided to go with Kubuntu, which is Ubuntu under the hood running the KDE Plasma desktop. If you're new to the Linux scene, how it works is, and I'm very much simplifying this, you can have the underlying system be something like Ubuntu, Fedora, or Arch, with a user interface such as KDE Plasma, GNOME, or Cinnamon. If you're coming from Windows or Mac, you typically don't get the choice. Installing your distribution of choice is similar across the board. Typically, this is done by burning the image to a USB drive, powering on your computer, and entering the boot menu. Then select the USB to boot from and follow the prompts. I'm going to be a little bit of a coward and I'm going to dual boot my system, meaning my Windows operating system is still installed and can be accessed. Many of the programs and games I run work on Linux, but it's always nice to have a safety net. To make sure I don't accidentally delete anything off of Windows, I bought an entirely new drive to run the new operating system on. If you know anything about Linux, it's that many things can be run from the command line. There's a command line tool for just about anything you can imagine. And if there's a command line tool, it can be put into a script. One thing some people like to do then are write long shell scripts for installing and configuring their system automatically. Let's take a look at what mine is doing. Now, I know that staring at text with a voiceover is probably one of the most boring things imaginable, so to keep the video engaging, I'm going to use the powerful text processor, TextStream 2. If you're not daily driving this, you really should be. Okay, maybe this is a little too silly. That's more like it. Anyway, this script starts by creating a few directories that I like to have on all of my systems. Then I run some commands to get software that requires a few lines to install. Once that's all done, it's a bit more simple with a number of single-line installations. Again, if you're new to Linux, it might be a little bit confusing why there are so many options for installing apps. You can get them from a package manager, the built-in app store if your desktop has it, downloading binaries from the developer online, or compiling the app yourself in some cases. It seems like a lot, but I promise you, more options are good. The only cost is you need to learn something. If you're running Ubuntu, the popular options are to use the apt tool or snap, the latter of which is Ubuntu specific. Other systems can use Flatpaks and app images. Once again, I'll be reductive and say the main differences here lie in how much storage space the app takes, how much they can access the system resources, and development. Every team developing apps will have their own philosophy about how their software should be distributed, and there is currently no one best solution. I decided to go with Flatpaks for as many apps as I can, as it seems to be pretty widely supported. For any app I want, I simply add a line to the install script. Many entries on this list will not be unfamiliar to you. GIMP for photo editing, Shotcut for video editing, Steam, Inkscape, etc. Here are some of the more niche apps I'd like to point out. The first is Kanata, which is a really cool keyboard remapper tool. It essentially allows you to define a near infinite number of keyboard layers with different remappings. Further, it can launch arbitrary apps and send arbitrary text, which is dangerous but also pretty useful. Ruffle is a flash player because sometimes all you want to do is play Crush the Castle. Local Send is a quick way of sharing files across devices on a network, kind of like AirDrop. And CBonsai is a terminal app to generate text art bonsai trees. This is definitely not going to be the end of my list. I imagine I'll have a lot more apps that I want to try, as well as writing my own scripts to fill in the gaps. For instance, on my Windows computer, I had Event Ghost periodically send a heartbeat signal to my Home Assistant server to give the power on state. That's something I'm going to need to recreate. Other than that, it's a matter of configuring keyboard shortcuts, themes, and all that. I started by changing the wallpaper, desktop theme, and modifying the shadows around windows. I changed some of the shortcuts for navigating around virtual desktops to match what I'm used to on Windows. On the left monitor, I put some widgets to monitor aspects about my system, including CPU usage, GPU usage, and network. Although GPU usage doesn't seem to be working. The music controller is a third-party widget called Plas Music Toolbar. On the main display, I left it pretty much blank, just tweaking some of the icon visibility in the tray. On my right display, there is a small launcher for some often used apps and a clock. I wrote a script to do a neat little trick with activities. Activities allow you to set different wallpapers, widgets, and a whole lot more for different workflows. What I showed was the everyday activity. I also created a recording activity, which is just a plain gray background with shortcuts for OBS, and a single screen activity for use with movies and some games. There's a command line tool to change display configurations called K-Screen Doctor. My script cycles between activities, and if it lands on the single screen activity, it disables the peripheral monitors. Otherwise, it ensures that the peripheral monitors are enabled. And I hooked it up with the macro pad, so it's just one button press away. I've run into a few roadblocks, like apps just refusing to work, but of the things that do work, they work great. While it might not be the year of the Linux desktop, it is my year of the Linux desktop, and for many years to come, I hope. Part 3 is going to be looking at organizing cables, which I hope will bring a satisfying conclusion to the disorder. Until next time.